This fall when I was fishing Clear Lake, we had a really good topwater bite. During the spring too as well. The fish were all over the beds, and there wasn't much you couldn't do. You could go down the bank and there was a fish every 5 feet on a bed. So what I started doing was I started putting my boat in 1 foot of water. What that does is now I'm covering every single bed from the deep where I cast back to my boat in 1 foot of water. I'm going to go down the bank on Thule points. Thule points are a big factor at Clear Lake. Up north, if you get up into the state park area and towards Kelseyville, up there, Byron's Swimbait Alley up there, there's a lot of Thule structure. The fish like to move to the Thules to spawn. They got hard bottom. The hitch like to do the same thing. The hitch will go inside of the Thules, and they'll swim around like it's the back of their little creek they were trying to get to, and they'll do their dance right there in the Thules too. So what I try to do is get really parallel to the Thules. I want my trolling motor literally buzzing the Thules if I possibly can. The next ticket is to actually take your topwater bait that you're going to throw during spring, and you want to put it as close to the Thules as possible. I want to put it right down the edge. If I'm 3 feet off to the right side of that Thule edge, chances are if the fish has a bed made on the edge of the Thules, it's not going to move the 3 feet to eat the bait. I know 3 feet doesn't seem like much, but it is, especially on pressured fish. Clear Lake is a super pressured fishery, and these fish get used to certain things and they don't want to move far to get a meal. They're used to an easy meal with the hitch swimming around. They're used to an easy meal with the dying shad during winter and fall. So they don't like it moving too fast. So I like to do the same thing I do with the Huddleston. I'll throw that topwater bait out there, and I'll let it sit there until all the rings have disappeared. Now on a really glassy day, it's going to take 20, 30 seconds. You're going to watch those rings spread all the way out. I'm going to let those rings completely disappear. What that does is when the bait hits the water, throws off the rings, the fish sees the bait hit the water. They'll see it from 20 feet away. You'd be amazed how far a bass can see, even in visibility of only 3, 4, 5 feet of water. They feel it, they know which way to turn, where it was. I'm going to leave it there as long as possible again. So again, I'm focusing a lot on the dead stick. You guys are going to hear me say that numerous times, is dead sticking your swim baits, letting them sit there, letting the fish come investigate what just happened. They see nothing but splashes and lures swimming away all day long, all year round from all of us. So a lot of my know-how at Clear Lake is the dead stick. I'll throw it out there, I'll leave it there, I'll let the fish, they'll kind of, I can't see them doing it now, but they're going to start getting closer to it, and they'll start moving closer and closer and closer. And you'd be amazed that even after 3 minutes in that tank, you'll see one actually. His tail will start to fire up. You're going to see him start to change color, and this is what's happening down there in the water also. They're firing up, they're getting their tail ready, they're sitting right under it. Next time you move this bait, there's a good chance it's going to get eaten. That's why I do a lot of my dead sticking at Clear Lake, and that's how I get a lot of my bigger fish to react. Like I said, you're going to see a lot of people when they're throwing these baits, you're going to see them cast it out, and you're going to see them immediately start to work the bait back to the boat. I don't do that. I am more of the guy that throws it out, lets the bait sit there, and lets the fish get accustomed to the bait before I start working it. When I'm fishing my topwater lures, I'm fishing 65-pound braid. I got it on my iRod large swim rod. This rod is great for a lunker punker. It's got a lot of backbone on it. It's super stiff. You can cast it a country mile. The difference I noticed with this rod and a lot of other rods is the rods don't have any, they have more tip. This rod you see is very stiff on the tip. It's not going to get a lot of bend action. What that allows me to do with my topwater baits is when I throw it out there, to get the bait to walk side to side, a lot of people have a problem with that, and to keep it in the same side to side motion. A lot of that is all the rod, folks. You think it's you think it's I think it's the lure, I can't work this lure. A lot of that is the rod itself. My team partner and I were fishing these during the fall this year, and he could not get the bait to go side to side. He made 15 casts, he fouled it 15 times. I said, pick up my large swim, said make a cast and tell me what happens. He makes a cast out there, he walks the thing 4 times, gets a 6-pounder to eat it, drops my rod while the fish is still jumping and goes, now I know why it's so easy. and walks to the back of the boat. A lot of getting the bait to do what you want it to do is in your rod, especially with the topwater lures and especially the big baits. Another thing about the lunker punker here is hookup ratio. You want to learn how a fish is eating a bait. During the fall this year, we had the fish annihilating these topwater baits. I mean, as you can see, this thing's lost so much wood, it's almost broken in half. I noticed I was missing a lot of fish on the initial contact with the lure. So what I did was I took off the old owner hooks and the old Gamakatsu hooks that were on there with just 3 trebles, and I went to a decoy treble hook. This decoy treble hook is not a treble hook, it's a decoy quad hook. It's got 4 points on the end of it, on the end of every lure, on the end of every hook shank, sorry. And when we put these on our topwater baits, our hookup ratio went from 70% to 90-95% with these decoy quad hooks on here. I'm not sponsored by Decoy. I'm not sponsored by Lunker Punker. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies I'm telling you about right now. But I'm going to tell you what works and what works for me the best. So these decoy quad hooks, any wake bait, any swim bait actually, where you're going to fish a heavy line or a braided line, these decoy quad hooks are really helpful. Without these, I would have lost, I can't tell you how many fish that I had one of these trebles stuck in, and without it, I wouldn't have caught that fish. So again, Clear Lake, you know, you're going to hear me say it, the dead stick, but I can't stress it enough to you people about how important being really slow at Clear Lake is. A lot of my friends ask me, how do you catch such a big bag at Clear Lake? You know, I throw the Huddleston all day long, I throw this all day long, I throw that all day long. It's not what you're throwing, it's how you're throwing it. And a lot of people can't drill it into their minds about how slow you actually have to fish Clear Lake. Like I said, 5-to-1 gear ratios on almost all your swim bait rods if you can. And if you can't get a 5-to-1, you want to be able to count in your head. What I like to do is I like to go 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000. I like to count to 3 before I've made a complete turn of a revolution. And I'll hear myself counting in tournaments, counting all day long when I'm out there fishing, and I'm telling myself just slow down, slow down, slow down. And that's half the battle at Clear Lake, it really is learning just how slow to go. During springtime especially, like I said, before I get too far off topic here with the whole springtime thing, the angle of approach with the topwaters, you want try every single angle. If you get a fish to bite, come back later, try that same angle on his buddy, because if you're fishing bedfish, you know there's more fish around in the area. Remember how you caught your fish too. A lot of it is timing. Timing in the morning, timing in the afternoon, even midday timing. A lot of these fish will start to move come 10 o'clock. Even during the spring, they'll start to come out of the tules where they were hiding, and you'll really be able to see these fish. But as far as I can say, is the biggest tip during springtime is stay super parallel to the tules and as slow as you can go, guys. And that'll get you through the springtime pretty well at Clear Lake. It's more of a wake bait and a swim bait bite if you're fishing during spring. When you get into months like summer, you're gonna have the frog come out. You're gonna have the S-waver. You're gonna have the punch rods come out. You're gonna have the flip and stick. You're gonna have all these rods start coming out when the grass starts growing. When the grass starts growing at Clear Lake, it's time to switch up our whole routine, and that's what we do. As soon as we can see this grass mat start forming, we're talking 70-degree water. We're probably in the middle of June to the end of June now. You're constantly looking for the grass. These fish when they get done spawning, they want to move from the tules, they want to move out to the next available structure. That structure at Clear Lake is either a dock, it's going to be a rock point, or it's going to be a grass patch. Chances are it's going to be a grass patch if you're fishing up north. The whole ticket to these grass patches is finding which ones are holding schools of fish. We all know there's grass everywhere at Clear Lake. The whole ticket is to finding which ones are holding the schools. How I go about finding those certain grass patches is, say for instance, I'm in front of Rodman Slough. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of fish that swim in and out of Rodman for the spring to spawn and do everything else. When those fish get done spawning, they all want to come out of Rodman. What happens during summer is the water drops down inside Rodman, inside all of the creeks to be exact. These fish want to pull out of these creeks as soon as that water starts dropping. As soon as it gets down to a certain point where they're not comfortable with that water temperature anymore, they're all going to want to stack in that grass, which is outside of the mouth of so-called creek, whether it's Rodman, whether it's any of the creeks there, Kelsey Creek, any of them. What you want to do is, there's always going to be a bigger patch than the others. The biggest grass patch most likely has the fish in it. You're going to see boat-sized grass patches. You're going to see individual stringers of grass. You want to look for the big football field-sized patch of grass. In that big football field-sized patch of grass, there's going to be a couple honey spots where the grass is actually thicker than it looks. If you can decipher with your eyes where the grass is thickest in those grass mats, that's where the biggest bass and the most fish are going to be holding, to my knowledge. A lot of people fish Clear Lake different. Again, I'm just telling you guys how I would go through each season and how, if the water temperature changes, what I'm going to be looking for. As we get into that grass mat, I'm looking for type of grass. At Clear Lake, there's 3 different types of grass. Now, I'm not a grass expert, so I can't name them all. But we got the hydrilla, we got the mossy grass, and we got that white stringy grass that nobody likes to get on their lures and such a pain to rip through. The hydrilla is really the best situation for Clear Lake. The fish can get in it. They can use it as shade during the day. They use it as ambush. The bluegill like to get in there, and the bluegill actually live in there, so the bass constantly have food. The best way to go about approaching these grass patches isn't so much angles like I was talking about before. It's more timing of the day. You can pull up to a grass patch first thing in the morning. These fish are going to be wide open. You can see them busting on the silver sides in there, and it's going to be game on. You can come to that same grass patch at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you won't get a bite fishing it for 2 hours. All that is those fish are still in there. They're just not feeding. Clear Lake's on a feeding schedule, I've come to learn. Whoop, there goes my mic. Clear Lake's on a feeding schedule, I've come to learn. They feed when they want to feed, and they feed really, really aggressively when they want to feed. When they don't want to feed, the fish at Clear Lake are really, really, really hard to catch. They'll still be down there. You're going to see them on your graph. You're going to see them with your eyes visually swimming down there. It's just they're not feeding, and there really isn't much you can do to get a bass to react to a bait that doesn't want to feed. So a lot of it's timing. Like I said, if you have found the fish and you know where the fish are, it's all timing. Just keep at it. Hit the spot once, come back an hour later. If they don't go, leave the spot, come back 2-3 hours later, hit it again. Those fish are going to eat throughout the day one time, I promise you. Let's just all hope it's before the tournament's over, because we all like to catch them within derby time. But as far as the grass goes, that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the biggest grass patches at the mouths of the biggest creeks. The ones closest to the creek where they can swim in, hang out, do their thing, and not have to use a lot of energy moving from point A to point B. During summer, we also get a lot of the vine stuff that grows at Clear Lake, if you notice. The vine grows in all the creeks. You're going to notice it's got frogs swimming on it. You're going to see crawdads dangling off of it. You're going to see a lot of life in this vine stuff that grows in these creeks. What you want to do with that vine stuff is really good punch habitat. You're going to see crawdads, like I said. You're going to see frogs. You want to get to the thickest part of that green vine. I know a lot of people talk about, punch to the thickest part of the mat and whatnot. With the green vine, it's really important. The thickest part is attached to the bottom. A lot of people don't know that. The rest of the vine is just a canopy creating shade for the bass. If you can get to the back of that canopy and punch to the root where that root is connected to the bottom, that's where the majority of the bass are going to hang. They're going to hang on that stalk that connects to the bottom, whether it's mid-water column, right on the bottom, or up under the surface getting shade on the sun. That green vine is a huge, huge factor at Clear Lake. As far as when it comes to frogging. You come to frogging at Clear Lake, that green vine, you'll find it in every cove, every nook and cranny, everywhere you can throw at Clear Lake, you're going to see that green vine. Frogs, they make that their habitat, they make that their home. They lay their eggs inside the vine. What they'll do is they'll lay the eggs right on the stringers of the vine, and you'll see the egg sac growing off of the vine from the frogs. Come, I'd say, come June, July, once we really start getting into the summer months, all those tadpoles start hatching off of that vine. And what happens is you'll notice all these creeks about June, July, they're going to load with tadpoles. That's like the next food for the baby bass. All the bass that have just spawned during April and May, the baby bass are now hatching. You're going to have 6-inch fingerlings everywhere in the backs of these creeks. And that's what you're going to want to look for is the frogs that are hatching the tadpoles. A lot of these tadpoles are going to be coming out. You can almost walk across them at certain times during the spawn when they come out. So a big factor in that is also recognizing that you see the frogs in the structure. I do a lot of visual fishing at Clear Lake. I'm super eyes in the water. Get yourself a good set of polarized glasses. I don't do much pre-fishing or finding fish by feel. You won't see me going down the bank casting a lure very much, hoping to get bit. I'm more looking in the water, looking for specific things. Like I said, the green vine. You're going to find that green vine. You're going to want to cast your frog all to that green vine, through it, pull it out of it, dead stick it in there. I'm visually looking for life, though, is what I'm doing at Clear Lake. I'm visually looking for the bait fish that I'm trying to imitate. I'm visually looking for the bass that I want to catch, and that is a big factor at Clear Lake is visual sight fishing.